Welcome to our discussion on personality development and assessment, a critical component of understanding organizational behavior. Personality refers to the relatively stable set of psychological characteristics, traits, and patterns that influence how individuals think, feel, and behave across different situations. In organizational settings, understanding personality is not merely academic. It directly impacts employee selection, team formation, leadership effectiveness, and overall workplace harmony. As we explore this fascinating subject, we'll examine how personalities develop, how they're structured, and the methods organizations use to assess them. This knowledge forms the foundation for many practical applications in modern management practice. When exploring personality development, we need to recognize that multiple factors contribute to who we become. Personality development is influenced by a complex interplay of biological factors, including our genetic makeup, environmental influences such as family and culture, and situational contexts that shape our behavioral responses. No single factor determines personality in isolation. Instead, these determinants interact in complex ways throughout our lifespans, creating unique individual patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Let's explore each of these determinant categories in more detail to understand how they collectively shape workplace behavior. Biological determinants form the foundation of personality development. Heredity and genetic factors contribute significantly to our personality traits, with research suggesting that genetic influence accounts for approximately 40 to 60% of personality variance. Neurobiological influences, including brain structure and neurochemistry, affect temperament and emotional reactivity. Evolutionary psychology perspectives suggest that certain personality traits evolved as adaptive responses to environmental challenges. Studies of identical twins raised apart show remarkable similarities in personality, providing compelling evidence for biological determinants. For organizations, this means recognizing that some aspects of employee personality have deep biological roots and may be relatively resistant to change through training or intervention. Environmental factors play a crucial role in personality development. Family influences, particularly early parent-child interactions, establish attachment styles that affect future relationship patterns in the workplace. Sociocultural factors, including cultural values and norms, shape personality expressions, for example, individualistic versus collectivistic orientations. Educational experiences mold cognitive styles and achievement motivation. Early life events, especially significant emotional experiences, can create lasting personality impacts. Peer relationships throughout development influence social skills and interpersonal tendencies. Organizations must recognize that employees bring these environmental influences to work, affecting how they communicate, collaborate, and respond to leadership. Culturally diverse workplaces require awareness of how different environmental backgrounds shape personality expression. While personality implies consistency, situational factors significantly influence behavioral expression. Context-specific behaviors may differ from general tendencies when particular environmental cues are present. Role expectations in various settings can activate different aspects of personality. An employee might display different traits when leading versus following. Organizational culture creates powerful situational forces that can override certain personality dispositions. Work environment demands, such as time pressure or collaborative requirements, affect how personality manifests. Social norms and pressures within teams or departments can modify individual expression. Effective managers understand that personality assessment must consider both trait consistency and situational variability to accurately predict workplace behavior. Modern personality theory embraces an interactionist perspective that recognizes the dynamic relationship between personal characteristics and situations. Person-situation interaction theory suggests that behavior results from continuous interplay between individual tendencies and environmental contexts. Psychologist Bandura's concept of reciprocal determinism proposes that personality, environment, and behavior continuously influence each other in a bidirectional manner. This dynamic interplay explains why employees may show trait consistency while still adapting to specific workplace demands. The interactionist view helps organizations understand that neither personality nor situation alone determines workplace behavior. Both must be considered together for effective management practices. This perspective is particularly valuable when designing jobs that complement employee personality tendencies while allowing for growth and adaptation. To make personality understandable and measurable, psychologists have developed various structural models that organize traits into coherent frameworks. These models provide the conceptual foundation for personality assessment in organizational settings. We'll explore 4 influential models: the 5-factor model, commonly known as the Big Five; the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which remains popular in corporate settings despite mixed scientific support; the Hexaco model, which expands the Big Five to include honesty, humility; and the dark triad, which focuses on problematic personality traits. Each model offers a unique lens for understanding individual differences that manifest in workplace behaviors, team dynamics, and leadership styles. The 5-factor model, often called the Big Five, represents the most empirically validated framework in personality psychology. It organizes personality along 5 core dimensions. Openness to experience reflects curiosity, creativity, and preference for novelty. Conscientiousness captures organization, responsibility, and achievement orientation. Extroversion measures sociability, assertiveness, and positive emotionality. Agreeableness encompasses compassion, cooperation, and trust, and neuroticism, or its inverse, emotional stability, reflects anxiety, irritability, and emotional vulnerability. Meta-analyses show that conscientiousness consistently predicts job performance across occupations, with correlations averaging 0.23. Extroversion predicts success in sales and leadership positions, R equals 0.33, while openness correlates with training proficiency, R equals 0.25. Organizations increasingly use Big Five assessments for selection, team composition, and development planning due to their robust predictive validity and cross-cultural applicability. The Myers-Briggs type indicator remains one of the most widely used personality assessments in organizational settings, despite mixed scientific support. Based on Carl Jung's psychological types, the MBTI classifies people along 4 bipolar dimensions: extroversion versus introversion, energy source; sensing versus intuition, information gathering; thinking versus feeling, decision-making; and judging versus perceiving, lifestyle orientation. These combinations yield 16 distinct personality types, often described by 4-letter codes like ENTJ or ISFP. Approximately 89% of Fortune 100 companies use the MBTI for purposes such as team building, communication training, and leadership development. While many employees find MBTI insights personally meaningful, researchers caution about its limited test-retest reliability, averaging 0.65, and questionable predictive validity for job performance. Organizations should recognize these limitations while acknowledging the tool's value for promoting self-awareness and appreciating differences. The Hexaco model represents a more recent development in personality structure, expanding beyond the Big Five to include 6 dimensions. The addition of honesty, humility captures ethical tendencies, fairness, and modesty, traits not fully represented in the Big Five framework. The other dimensions include emotionality, similar to neuroticism but with different components; extroversion, agreeableness, with a different conceptualization than the Big Five version; conscientiousness, and openness to experience. Research shows the honesty-humility dimension significantly predicts counterproductive work behaviors, with correlations of -0.41 for workplace delinquency and -0.46 for unethical business decisions. Organizations concerned with ethical conduct and integrity-based culture may find the Hexaco model particularly valuable, as it provides insights into characteristics that might otherwise be overlooked in traditional personality assessments. While most personality models focus on normal range traits, the dark triad specifically examines socially aversive characteristics that can significantly impact workplace dynamics. This model encompasses three related but distinct personality traits: Machiavellianism, characterized by manipulation, strategic calculation, and moral flexibility; narcissism, involving grandiosity, entitlement, and need for admiration; and psychopathy, featuring callousness, impulsivity, and lack of remorse. Research indicates dark triad traits are present in approximately 1% of the general population, but may be overrepresented in certain professional settings. Studies show that corporate leadership positions have rates of clinically significant psychopathic traits 4 times higher than the general population, for percent versus 1%. While these traits can sometimes contribute to short-term leadership emergence, they typically undermine long-term organizational effectiveness through decreased trust, increased turnover, and ethical violations. Understanding the dark triad helps organizations identify potentially destructive leadership tendencies and implement appropriate safeguards. With a solid understanding of personality structure, we now turn to the methodologies used to assess these characteristics in organizational settings. Assessment approaches vary widely in their theoretical foundations, implementation procedures, and practical applications. We'll examine 5 major categories: self-report inventories, which rely on individuals' own responses to standardized questions; observer ratings, which gather perspectives from colleagues and supervisors; projective techniques, which infer personality from responses to ambiguous stimuli; behavioral assessment, which evaluates actual performance in simulated situations; and emerging digital or AI-based methods that analyze behavioral data. Each approach offers distinct advantages and limitations, making them suitable for different organizational purposes. Self-report inventories represent the most common method of personality assessment in organizational settings. These standardized questionnaires ask individuals to rate themselves on various trait-relevant behaviors and tendencies. Common formats include Likert scales, where respondents indicate agreement levels with statements, and force-choice formats, which require selecting between equally desirable options. Self-reports offer several advantages. They're cost-effective, easily administered to large groups, and provide access to internal experiences that others cannot observe. However, they have significant limitations, including social desirability bias, candidates presenting themselves favorably, and self-awareness constraints. Research indicates that in high-stakes situations like job applications, self-report measures show inflation effects averaging 0.38 standard deviations. Organizations can mitigate these concerns through validity scales that detect response patterns, force-choice formats that reduce faking, and combining self-reports with other assessment methods for more comprehensive evaluation. Observer ratings overcome certain limitations of self-reports by gathering personality perceptions from people who interact with the individual. These often take the form of 360-degree feedback, collecting input from supervisors, peers, subordinates, and sometimes customers. Peer evaluations and supervisor assessments provide different perspectives on workplace behaviors, while behavioral checklists focus observations on specific, observable actions rather than general impressions. Observer ratings show particular strength in assessing interpersonal traits. Meta-analyses indicate observer-rated extroversion and agreeableness correlate more strongly with workplace outcomes, are equals 0.35 and 0.30 respectively, than self-reported measures of the same traits, are equals 0.18 and 0.17. However, observer ratings can be influenced by personal relationships, limited observation opportunities, and implicit biases. Organizations find observer ratings most valuable for developmental feedback and identifying blind spots between self-perception and external impressions, particularly in leadership development programs. Projective techniques represent a fundamentally different approach to personality assessment, operating on the psychodynamic premise that individuals project unconscious aspects of their personality when responding to ambiguous stimuli. The Rorschach ink blot test asks individuals to interpret ambiguous ink blots, while the thematic apperception test presents ambiguous scenes for story creation. Sentence completion tests prompt responses to unfinished statements that may reveal underlying motivations or conflicts. While historically significant in clinical psychology, projective techniques have limited organizational application due to several factors. They require specialized training to administer and interpret, show questionable reliability, test-retest correlations averaging 0.43, and lack clear validation for workplace outcomes. Some consulting firms have developed modified projective approaches for executive assessment, but these remain controversial in organizational psychology. Most evidence-based organizational practices favor more structured and validated assessment methodologies. Behavioral assessment approaches focus on direct observation of how individuals actually behave in standardized situations rather than relying on self-description or projective interpretation. Work simulations place candidates in realistic job scenarios to observe relevant behaviors. For example, management candidates might handle an employee conflict scenario. Assessment centers combine multiple exercises like group discussions, in-basket tasks, and presentations to evaluate various competencies simultaneously. Situational judgment tests present workplace dilemmas and ask respondents to select appropriate responses. Behavioral interviews ask candidates to describe specific past situations that demonstrate relevant competencies. Research supports the validity of these approaches, with meta-analyses showing assessment centers predict job performance with validity coefficients of 0.36, significantly higher than unstructured interviews, 0.18. Organizations increasingly use behavioral assessment for high-stakes selection decisions, especially for leadership positions where accurate prediction of performance is crucial. Emerging technologies are revolutionizing personality assessment through computational approaches that analyze digital footprints and behavioral patterns. Computational personality assessment algorithms can identify trait patterns from text samples with accuracy approaching traditional questionnaires. Social media analytics examine publicly available posts and interactions to infer personality characteristics. Research shows Facebook likes alone can predict personality traits with accuracy comparable to spouse ratings. Natural language pattern analysis identifies linguistic markers associated with personality dimensions. While promising, these methods raise significant ethical considerations around privacy, consent, and algorithmic bias. A 2023 survey found that 67% of employees expressed concerns about AI-based personality assessments in hiring decisions. Organizations adopting these technologies must implement transparent policies, ensure GDPR and other regulatory compliance, and validate that algorithmic assessments don't disadvantage protected groups. Despite challenges, digital assessment methods offer unprecedented opportunities to understand personality expression in natural contexts. The knowledge of personality development and assessment translates into numerous practical applications within organizations. In personnel selection, matching candidate traits to job requirements improves person-job fit and reduces turnover. Companies using validated personality assessments report 27% lower turnover rates on average. For team composition, understanding member personalities helps balance complementary traits and anticipate interaction dynamics. Leadership development programs use personality assessment to increase self-awareness and target specific growth areas for executives. Performance management systems benefit from recognizing how personality influences work styles and motivational drivers. Career planning becomes more effective when aligning career paths with personality tendencies. Research shows congruence between personality and job characteristics correlates with job satisfaction at or equals 0.42. Organizations implementing comprehensive personality assessment strategies report 31% higher employee engagement scores compared to those relying solely on skills and experience evaluations. While personality assessment offers valuable insights, organizations must navigate significant challenges and ethical considerations in its application. Cultural bias in assessments can disadvantage certain groups if instruments were developed and validated primarily in Western contexts. Assessment tools should undergo cross-cultural validation. Privacy concerns arise regarding the appropriate boundaries of personality evaluation and data security. Labeling and stereotyping risks emerge when personality categories become overly deterministic or reductive. Legal compliance with employment laws prohibiting discrimination requires careful validation and implementation. Organizations must acknowledge the predictive limitations of personality assessment, recognizing that even the best measures explain only a portion of workplace behavior variance. According to the American Psychological Association, best practices include using personality assessment as one component of multi-method evaluation processes, ensuring assessments are job-relevant, providing feedback to participants, and regularly evaluating assessment impact on diversity outcomes. When implemented ethically and scientifically, personality assessment contributes significantly to organizational effectiveness and employee development.